So I didn't really have time to review last week's episode of Fire Force, so I'm going to do a little bit of a joint review for last week and this week, which it actually works out quite well because watching these past two episodes back to back, it flows in one little arc that is action-packed, it's exhilarating, it's just really some of the best Fire Force content we've seen in quite some time, and it was a great arc, I have to say. I mean, the thing that we had to end this arc with was Benimaru either being neutral with our crew or liking them, so it was nice to see him smile at the end and consider them friends. If anything comes up, call me and I'll be there to help you, and vice versa. It's something that just feels rewarding after everything that did transpire. I mean, we had this weird people imitating other people, and it's like, how big is that going to go? And the entire town was basically in chaos. It was in ruin because, well, everyone just thinks each other are doing horrible things, and once it's revealed that, hey, pretty much everyone in this town, we don't know who's who, so just beat each other up. It's like, that was just, like, that's Fire Force at its best right here. The visual production for the past couple episodes have been just fantastic. It was pretty much like there was something on fire the past two episodes pretty much at all points in time. And when the explosions were going off, or just the way they would frame the shots, it was pretty dramatic, but for the most part, it was mostly badass. I just especially love seeing Benimaru, someone who's pretty noble. He's pretty respected, and, you know, for a while there, he was pretty down in his luck there. Like, he was not willing to even, like, speak up because someone like Conroe would be much more capable of invoking confidence. He's more of the guy who brings it down and kind of helps rebuild it, but he's not really a big speaker. But it's interesting how he's really against the Imperials and just the armies and things like that, but he's kind of been roped into this. Bizarre to see, for so long, we've kind of looked at him as the leader, the man kind of always saying the right thing, or maybe not saying much, but his actions always get the job done. Clearly he's respected by the townsfolk, but he really wants to hide behind his good friend and ally. But I do appreciate how he actually pushed back and said, in this situation, they don't want to hear from me, they want to hear from you. It's that little bits of detail that really helps characters feel a lot more fleshed out and multi-layered than they would if it would just be someone who's always confident and could handle it by himself and he didn't have to talk or ask for help, or even just accept help from characters like maybe Shinra when he no longer can use any of his fire, so he's going to crash and kill himself. Or will he just kind of take the ball and just say, okay, I'm gonna be carried like a little princess here because I have to accept help. It's nice when characters actually have the will to accept help and, you know, realize that they are being weak and rise to the occasion in the appropriate measure. And in any other series, you wouldn't really say everyone start hitting each other is like the most optimal outcome, but in a world where basically characters can take the face of others, and unless you apply physical brute strength to them, I mean, how else are you going to basically be able to figure out who is who? Now, granted, Benimaru didn't see the actual damage and how it would revert them back to their original form, but I mean, if everyone in this town, you can't tell if they're ally or foe, just hit each other. I mean, this is the type of town that if their buildings get destroyed when their leader is basically taking out infernals, who cares? They'll rebuild. It's probably the same logic. If they get a black eye or broken nose, it'll heal, it'll get better, and hey, we got our captain in the sky, what's not to love? Let's make this into a fighting festival. Like, that's the type of stuff that just makes Fire Force, and it's such a compelling series. I especially like just seeing some of the smaller jokes, like when one of the girls goes missing and we're like, oh god, is she gonna be an infernal? And then she's just kicking the ass of people because they're not giving her the candy or food that she wants. Like, there's these little moments that are just absolutely hilarious, or we're seeing some of our characters hit each other in the face. It's just like, you just can't get that type of content in any other series. But I especially like the dynamic between Arthur as well as Shinra, because these two are so polar opposite. The idea of wanting them to work together and be coordinated, it's just something that can't happen. And the number of times they either bounce into one another, or just like they get so pissed off or get riled up because they're like, okay, we got this finally. No, we don't got this. Okay, I'll take the aerial combat, you take the ground combat. It's just like that little dynamics that just help to ease us down from a very tight and very intense atmosphere where it's pretty depressing, it's pretty severe at multiple points, but when you get those smaller details, it helps Fire Force kind of calm down and remind us that this isn't just a serious show. It can be rather funny if it wants to. But just the action, I have to say, the number of explosions and the way the flames really were brought to life in this episode, the production was amazing the past two episodes, especially with this week's episode, because, you know, when we really get Benimaru, like, he's like the top soldier, he's the strongest fighter in this world, as far as we know him based on what other characters have said. And just the fact that his normal attacks that he would normally apply to Infernal, something that's not his top move, but enough to take out most things, and those weren't working, he had to kind of progressively crank up his powers. It was insane to see the variety of flames and just how much power this man radiated. Literally, for like 5 minutes of the episode, he was actually just pushing an Infernal up into the air so he could get to enough distance so that when he uses his abilities, there won't be major damage in the crossfire. And to just see that moment with Shinra in this episode, I don't even know what was going on with him. The idea that they were doing like this almost like hacking scene where like it was almost hacking into the visuals and you'd hear these cracking and these electronic sounds as he couldn't see his feet, or he would just be losing his mind, and, you know, this cult is saying like, oh, you should join us because you have the devil's flames, but he's throwing it back in their face saying he's going to use those flames to save people. Like, there are some creepy elements to this episode, I have to say, and I really think the combination of sound effects and visual production with how they're kind of like glitching on screen, not knowing what we were seeing, it really added on to the uncertainty. But when he did snap into it, and just like, holy shit, the speed on Shinra, like, Shinra is not even close to being the most powerful character in this world, and I appreciate that because, you know, someone like Benimaru, it's nice to have a side character who's that kind of overpowered from what we can tell, but even he has his weaknesses at times, as seen with his personality and what was happening in the first half of this episode. But it was especially nice to see that Shinra, even though he can't compete with Benimaru, he does have insane speed that most people wouldn't even be able to tell, holy shit, did he actually fly from here to here in a matter of seconds? So it's nice to just see the overall combination, and that this entire battle, it didn't feel fake, it didn't feel forced or artificial. To me, what this arc represented was that all of these characters, for as powerful as they may appear to be, they're either going to have something with their mindset that is going to hold them back, or even their abilities at times, and it really is a group effort. It's not just like Benimaru can just run the show by himself and take care of business. I mean, he even admits, you know, should their division not have been there, they already had people infiltrating them. At some point, maybe if Shinra and his crew wasn't there, maybe he would have lost everyone. Like, everyone needs to team up and really find the people within this organization that they can trust in, believe in. As you know, it's not a just sunshine and rainbows organization. There's a lot of corruption, a lot of sabotage, and it's up to the characters really finding those connections that are going to be set in stone. Someone that, should your back be against a wall, that they can call upon them and you know they're going to be there, even if it means risking their life, if not giving up their life for their allies. It's just nice that the idea of like friendship and companionship in these past 2 episodes, it never really felt like cliche shonen where like friendship's magic, you know, friendship will beat all. It actually felt rewarded, as if, you know, the way people survive in their day-to-day life is with connections that they form. Those without those connections suffer a lot more than those who have really genuine connections. And the fact that they really built up to this genuine friendship being formed and how they can still insult each other or, you know, just talk back to each other by the end of this episode, it feels like it was rewarding. At multiple points throughout this run, we're like, man, Benimaru might kill our characters or might hit them hard enough that they can't use their abilities. Like, it really did feel like there was stakes with not only just the dynamics between the crews, but also the Infernals and the cult kind of coming in to shake up innocent people's lives. It actually felt like this had probably the strongest structure the past arcs that we've seen. It really felt like the peak of what you want to see Fire Force deliver, and it could easily continue to improve. But if this is the idea and just the bar that Fire Force wants to either hit or even go past for future arcs, future episodes with the second core, Fire Force could really turn out to be something wonderful by the time this first season wraps up. Because right now, like, I have a few issues with Fire Force, but the excitement that I have going in and out of an episode is still there, and with episodes such as these, my excitement is even higher, which it kind of makes me happy because this show on a production level is utterly fantastic, but how many great shonens have great production, but the actual characters or writing, it's nothing to write home about. But I can safely say, more times than not, the writing is something to write home about, as seen with just the amazing personalities flourishing in this week's episode, and especially with last week's episode as well. Really, it's a good binge the past few episodes to just watch them back to back. It's something that there's a lot of little details that really just help elevate this series into another level, and I'm glad that Fire Force is turning out so strong. When this series first started off, I thought maybe it would be fun and maybe I'd lose interest over time, but no, my interest is only rising with each passing week. I mentioned it earlier in the review about how the sound effects with Shinra kind of like going insane and losing his mind. It really added on to that scene, but it's not even just like the glitchy sound effects they use. It's just like every time fire is on screen, visually everyone's probably going to say that either looks good if not amazing, because they rarely incorporate like stock footage into their flames. It's usually just really well drawn and the effects are applied really nicely. But it is the sound effects that I think really is what something probably going underappreciated. I don't even think I've really complimented it that much, but with the amount of flames and just punches and impacts and just overall destruction that we saw over this arc, the sound effect, should we remove what was seen here, it would have been a lot less immersive. It would have felt more like an anime scene and less like something that felt like we were a part of this scene. Because the number of times you hear the cracking of the flames or just a punch attacking someone, and you actually feel like the impact, it's like the animation does a good job at making it feel like there's a force that is throwing someone around. But when you add in that detail with the sound design, it's like, holy shit. This is the little details that not a lot of series go to, especially with like battle shonens, because as long as they get the animation right, the fandom's gonna be just fine. But for me, like when I'm really looking, especially because I watched 2 episodes back to back, I just really was like, man, I need to compliment the sound effects more, because the number of details and just little cues that they add into it, it's simply phenomenal. But what did everyone think of this week's episode of Fire Force? For manga readers, how did the emotion kind of radiate from the voice acting and the mixture of music? And for anime originals, what did you think? Was this episode kind of catching you off guard? Because it definitely caught me off guard at multiple points. Whatever you're feeling, let me know. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy, and also hit that subscribe button if you happen to be new. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.